Hello and welcome. Today we talk about Konstantin Stanislavski's essay Faith and a Sense of Truth. Now Stanislavski was a theatre practitioner from Russia and he was a formative figure in Russian theatre. He is very well known because he devised a system of acting wherein he insisted that an actor should look as natural as possible on stage. So this essay is actually divided in several parts and each part is actually discussing a separate topic. So I have given subtitles to every part that I would be discussing. So I'm just giving you a primer of what are the topics that we would be talking about in this video. So the part 1 talks about how to act and why an actor should act naturally. Part 2 talks about how not to overact and why an actor should not be overacting. Part 7 likewise talks about the tips and the tricks that an actor can use to capture truthful emotions. And for him, truthful emotions basically means how an actor is appearing real and natural on stage. Part 8 is actually an analogy between acting and traveling and the importance of small physical acts and meaningful actions that an actor can do on stage in order to appear natural. Part 9 is actually about channelizing your own emotions for a particular scene. So now I would begin discussing the text, and one by one we would be talking about the various aspects that he discusses in the text. So the first part, as I introduced, was about the dilemma that an actor faces while enacting a scene and how he could act in a scene and appear truthful as possible. So he says, how could an actor, the dilemma is, how could an actor appear truthful or perform a scene truthfully? And he says that acting should be such that you need not, and I quote, you need not be an actor, but you can just be a ordinary human being in order to act natural, right? So he gives examples from Othello. He says that, how could an actor perform this thing as naturally as possible? And in this scene, he says, in this particular aspect, he says that the inner life of a human spirit should be tapped to believe in a certain reality. And this is something very important that he says, truth cannot be separated from belief, nor belief from truth. And this is very, very resonating, it's very true for your psychological reality. What you believe seems to be truthful to you, right? And our analysis and our research in psychology also suggests the same thing. People who are unable to, who have mental illnesses also believe whatever, they also start physically seeing what they believe, right? So this is what he's saying, that truth and belief are actually not separate, so that the actor should actually start believing whatever he is acting in. So that the whole aspect of quote unquote inner life of human spirit, this inner life of human spirit is very, very important. So you would be able to emote your scenes well. Okay, so this is what he says in the first part. Part 2 talks about that if you are believing in this reality on stage, you should also not over-believe it in a way that the balance between truth and falsehood is lost. So there has to be a balance between what is truthful and what is not true. So he says that even while the actor believes the stage to be the reality, he should not behave, he should not be so lost in the emotions that he goes overboard, right? And that's what he says, that you should not be lost into that zone. You should be mindful of how you would appear to the audience, so the audience is, not turned away from such an acting. So basically, he says that you should not be overacting. And this is one thing that he says, because of the presence of a large audience, an actor feels bound, whether he wishes or not to give out an unnecessary amount of effort and emotions that are supposed to represent feelings. So he said you should avoid giving these unnecessary emotions in order to emote well. Okay, so basically he's in this section, he's saying that you should not be overacting. Now I'm doing these sections very briefly. We go over to part 7. And part 7 is also discussing similar issues. In part 7, he describes, a simple scene. Here he's actually talking about how an actor can actually capture truthful emotions in his actions. And he says that he says that a balance uh, between truth and falsehood has to be achieved. And he says that a simple scene where an actor is supposed to do a task, like he gives you an example of a scene where he is to count money in the presence of certain other characters. He says that the actor here, is naturally inquisitive about his relationship, the character's relationship between each other. So he says that you create a backstory of all the characters, and all the characters, you as an actor should know the relationship between all the characters that are present on stage. Now, giving a backstory to these actors would help you emote very well. You should know why these actors are standing the way they are, the way they are behaving, the way they are, and the reasons behind that. So he gives the example of an actor who has to do a simple action of counting money on a table in the presence of his wife and the brother of his wife, who is a hunchback. Now he says that why should the hunchback be there all the time? Why should this man, this handicapped man who doesn't understand much, he's also mentally, he has a mental condition, he is always around the wife. Why? So once he knows the story of these two characters, the wife and the brother of the wife, the backstory is that the brother of the wife had to had to give up on his physical well-being in order to save the life of his sister and the mother when they were being born. So this backstory actually helps to understand the crucial relationship between the sister, the kind of family that she comes from, and why the brother of the sister, the handicapped person, has to be around with them all the time. And once this character, who is to count money on the table in the presence of the wife and the brother, once he knows these backstories, he's able to emote himself much better. So he says that this kind of a backstory, this kind of a background, creating this background is actually very helpful for actors to perform better, right? So this is what he says. You have to create a physical and spiritual life so that you are able to recreate a part of your emotion which the audience is to see in you. Okay. Now this is part 7. Part 8 talks about how truthful emotions, or how the importance of small actions done on stage and how they can be used and captured by the actor to act well. So he says that that if you have to act on stage, when you call upon the experience, and I'm reading from the text, when you are called upon to experience a tragedy, do not think about your emotions at all. Think about what you have to do. Now, this is something that he says towards the very end of this particular part, right? He says that you need not think of those emotions that you're having, but you focus on the things that you have to do on stage. So basically, the small actions that an actor performs are very, very important, because they give the actor something substantial and something tangible to do, so that the moment is captured very, very well, right? So once the actor knows what to do on stage, he would not overdo on the emotions, right? So for instance, he gives you the example of a person who is about to die and how his wife or his main caretaker is supposed to behave on stage. Now, here he also gives you here the example of Lady Macbeth, redoing the act of washing the blood from her feet constantly, which is an action she keeps repeating. And another example that he gives, that when a person is about to die, what would his primary caretaker do in the final scene? Would she be crying, or would she be saying something? He just says no. She would ideally be just taking the temperatures or applying compresses, just following the doctor's orders in order to get past that tragedy. So that is actually the psychology of a person who is going through very intense emotions. So he says all these actions better express the struggle with death, right? So rather than focusing on the emotion that you have to have on your face, you should rather focus on the small actions that the audience can see you do, and with those actions the audience can actually tell that you are actually very, very anxious. Finally, part 9 talks about how a person can channelize these emotions, and here he gives the example of an actor uh, who has to act like she has lost her baby. Now, basically in this section, he says that the actor needs to really believe whatever is happening on stage. Now, how would the actor believe whatever he's doing on stage? He has to channelize his own past. He has to tap into his own past feelings to do justice to the part that he's playing. He says, how would the actor believe in the actual action of the play? He or she has to channelize their own past and their real life events in order to get an emotion. And the example given by an actor is called Tasha, who has to act like she has lost her child. Okay, now incidentally, this actor had actually lost her baby in real life, and this has actually happened to her, so she was able to emote very well. But the challenge was, how could she repeat the scene and not with the real baby but with a log of wood? So channelizing your emotion is one thing, but repeating that emotion is another, and repeating that emotion with the prop is an altogether different thing, right? So how would these various layers of challenges, of emotional challenges, would be surpassed or bypassed by this actor? So the director says to this that the actor has to channelize her own past and believe that the log of wood is actually her baby. And once she starts believing that the log of wood is actually the baby, she will even be able to repeat the brilliant performance again. So, basically she has to overcome her overcome the resistance, the natural resistance that she has on seeing the log of wood, because she has to believe that that log of wood is actually her baby. Then once she believes that, she will naturally be able to tap into her old feelings of having lost her own baby in the past, and that combination of believing that the log of wood is her own baby and the fact that she has herself lost a baby in the past, both these things would come together and create a very good performance. Now, these are the things that Stanislavski talks about in this particular essay. I hope you understood all the sections that I talked about. To give you a recap, I would again tell you the first part that I discussed talks about how to act and how to act naturally. Part 2 talked about how not to overact and why not to overact. Part 7 talked about the tips and the tricks that can be used to capture truthful emotions. And parts 8 and 9 gave the tips and tricks that an actor can use in order to appear natural, and these tricks are of doing small and meaningful actions, or of channelizing your own emotions for a particular scene. So this was this essay by Stanislavski. I hope you understood this. If you want more from any of the readings, from any of the essays that you have in your syllabus, please let me know. I'd be happy to cover that. Thank you.